Hey, Melissa, what are you doing here? I was shocked to see my 8-year-old grandchild in ragged clothes, rummaging through the trash in the park. But the child said,
"That's not me."
and ran away. I couldn't be mistaken. I couldn't shake off my concern, so I called my son.
It's the kids' sports day today. I'm busy.
I could hear children cheering and an announcer in the background. Then who was that child earlier? I couldn't get the image out of my head. And then, the unbelievable truth behind this scene was about to be revealed. I'm Megan Stroll, 58 years old. A few years ago, I lost my husband, who was an executive at a company, to illness. Thanks to the inheritance he left me, I've been living a comfortable life as a housewife. My son Matt, his wife Kim, and their 8-year-old daughter Melissa live about a 10-minute drive from my house.
Grandma, your omelets are my favorite. Can I come over every day?
I'd love that, but you have school.
Then I'll live with you, Grandma. Then you can make them every day.
I couldn't help but adore my grandchild, who always loved being with me. My son worked at a large company thanks to his father's connections. I thought they were living comfortably, but he was apparently reckless with money, often spending his salary without thinking ahead, which caused fights with his wife. One day, Kim called me. I told Matt to stop wasting money, but he got angry, saying it's his money to use as he likes. Hearing my daughter-in-law's distress, I decided to visit their house to give my son a piece of my mind. When I rang the doorbell, Kim greeted me and led me to the living room. Matt, lying on the sofa fiddling with his phone, glanced at me.
What do you want?
He sighed deeply. Do you realize you're the breadwinner of this family?
Shut up. I know without you nagging.
We ended up having a huge argument. Because of that day, our relationship worsened, and he stopped coming to see me. Good grief, what a mess. However, when I contacted him to give Melissa her birthday present, he came over. I tried to hold back, but seeing his face, I couldn't help but nag him. Matt turned away, clearly not wanting to listen.
Every time I see you, it's just nag, nag, nag. From now on, just send Melissa's gifts. Don't come over.
I was taken aback by his unexpected response. What? Then I won't be able to see Melissa.
That's your punishment for making me angry. I'll never bring her over again. Spend your life alone.
I was shocked, turning pale at his harsh words. Even seeing my distress, he didn't change his expression and left with Melissa. Seeing my grandchild looking back at me worriedly only made the situation more heartbreaking. For a while, I felt depressed and withdrew into myself. Surely, Matt's feelings will change over time. I kept telling myself that to calm down. I didn't feel like going out, staying cooped up at home, but I decided I couldn't go on like that and resumed my daily walks. About 3 months later, I decided to walk a bit further than usual. I can still walk quite well, I thought, but suddenly I felt tired and decided to rest at a nearby park. There, I saw a shabby-looking girl rummaging through a trash can. As I approached and saw her face, I gasped. Melissa? Is that you, Melissa?
No.
She glanced at me with wide eyes and a shocked expression, then ran away. Did I mistake her? No, she looked just like Melissa. Unable to shake off my concern, I called my son.
What do you want? I'm busy with the kids' sports day.
That can't be true. Because... Before I could respond, he muttered complaints. Then, from the background, I heard children cheering and an announcer. Next is the race. Is everyone ready? It echoed. Indeed, Matt seemed to be at the sports day.
Did you hear that announcement?
Yes. I know you're at the sports day. But it's strange. I saw a girl who looked exactly like Melissa rummaging through the trash in the park. I couldn't have mistaken my dear grandchild. As I insisted, he paused briefly.
Ha! What are you talking about? It's definitely someone else. Ridiculous. Don't call me for such nonsense.
He quickly returned to his usual tone and abruptly hung up. Could it be a mistake, as he said? I felt a strange sense of unease and couldn't get that scene out of my mind. Feeling uneasy, I continued my walk, naturally heading towards my grandchild's school. But the usually lively grounds were empty and silent. What's going on? I was frozen in surprise when I saw a poster. The date showed the sports day had ended last week. My son's words were false. Then, the girl I saw in the park must have been Melissa. If so, where was my son? Questions filled my mind. Thinking it would be faster to confirm, I went straight to my son's house and rang the doorbell. After a short wait, the girl I saw in the park stood there in ragged clothes.
Grandma, why did you come?
As soon as she saw me, she shrank back, looking like she was about to cry. I hugged her tightly. So it was you in the park, Melissa. But why are you dressed like that? Where are your parents? No matter how many times I asked, she only repeated,
It's nothing. I'm fine.
Anyway, I'm coming in. Melissa tried to stop me from taking off my shoes, but I entered the house forcefully. The hallway was covered in dust, and when I opened the living room door, garbage was scattered everywhere, and it smelled of spoiled food. I was speechless at the sight of the room, so messy there was no place to step. What is going on here?
I was just about to clean up. Grandma, please leave.
No matter what I asked, she wouldn't answer. The bread on the floor had expired a week ago. The fridge was empty. Could Melissa have been alone all this time? As I pondered, her stomach growled loudly. I couldn't leave her there, so after convincing her despite her refusal, I brought her to my house, bathed her, and fed her. At first, she was timid, but as she took bite after bite, she began to relax. You have always loved Grandma's omelets. Are they good? She nodded repeatedly, tears streaming down her face as she enjoyed her favorite food. It was like she was finally letting out all her pent-up emotions. With a full stomach and feeling more relaxed, she began to talk. There was an unbelievable truth behind my grandchild rummaging through the trash.
Mom had to have surgery and has been in the hospital, so she hasn't been home.
I hadn't heard anything from my son or daughter-in-law. They probably didn't tell me because we hadn't been in contact since the argument over her birthday present. What about your dad?
As soon as Mom went to the hospital, he said he had a new family and left. He hasn't come back.
I was shocked. A new family? The thought of what my son might be doing made me feel even sorrier for her. Why didn't you contact Grandma? You can always rely on me when you're in trouble. At that, her calm expression darkened.
Dad said if I told anyone, I'd never see Mom again. So I kept quiet.
After some time, she ran out of food and couldn't bear the hunger, so she lived by scavenging from park trash cans. However, Melissa was attending elementary school, so she must have been eating at least school lunches. Were you going to school in tattered clothes all the time?
Dad called the school and told them that I didn't want to go, so he said he would send me to some distant relatives for a while.
When I listened carefully, she told me that she wanted to go to school to see her friends, but even that wasn't allowed. My son must have kept her from seeing anyone so she wouldn't reveal what was going on. I called Kim's phone to verify the surprising story I heard from my granddaughter. What? Is that true? I was also surprised. Kim had been hospitalized for surgery due to a gynecological illness and thought Matt was properly taking care of things during that time. However, recently, even when she called, he found various reasons not to connect her with our granddaughter, which she found odd. I'm sorry for any trouble I caused. How is she? She's eating well now and has become energetic again, so don't worry. To my daughter-in-law, whose voice trembled with worry, I assured her that I would take full responsibility for our granddaughter, and ended the call. After that, I immediately contacted my son. When I questioned him about everything, he shamelessly justified himself.
She's fine, so there's no need to raise your voice. When you called the other day, it was her son's sports day.
Do you realize what you're doing?
This woman's my mistress for now, but I plan to settle down with her eventually. Besides, I've always wanted a son, so it's perfect.
He casually revealed that he was living with the other woman and her child, neglecting his own daughter. I felt my blood boil and wished I could slap him right there.
And I told her I'd make sure she paid if she snitched.
What's with all your selfish remarks? Leaving her alone and not letting her go to school is not what a parent does. Even as I lectured him, he let it go in one ear and out the other, starting to justify himself even more.
I've smoothed things over with the school, and since Kim's in the hospital, all the calls from the school come to me. As long as no one finds out, it's fine. I'm really smart, aren't I?
Listening to him laugh about something that could involve the police, I felt a chill and a sense of dread. What are you planning to do about Kim?
She's no use since she can't have kids anymore. I've decided to start a new family with my mistress.
I felt terribly sorry for my daughter-in-law, who was suffering in the hospital. However, my son, ignoring my persuasion, even said,
Tell her to leave my house as soon as possible.
I was utterly disgusted by his selfishness and shook with anger. But I realized continuing the conversation wouldn't solve anything, so I calmed down and ended the call. Later, I took my granddaughter to visit Kim in the hospital. She hugged our granddaughter tightly. I'm sorry for making you suffer. Tears streamed down her face.
If you're well, then I'm fine. I hope you get better soon.
I'll work hard so we can live together again. Please take care of her until then. As she bowed deeply, I gently patted her shoulder. Leave it to me. I smiled. I asked my granddaughter, who said she was thirsty, to get a drink. Then, I apologized for my son's selfishness and told Kim the whole truth. How awful. I'm the one most hurt by not being able to have children. How could he cheat at such a time? Understanding her pain as a woman, my eyes welled up. Hearing the truth, She cried and decided to divorce him. I think it's best for both you and her if you separate from him and raise her. But we need to make him pay first. It's my fault for being powerless. She blamed herself, but I told her it wasn't her fault but my son's. Just then, my granddaughter returned with the drink. For a while, she clung to her mother, looking very happy. I was determined to avoid any more sadness for these two. On the way back from the hospital. That's it. I have a plan to corner him. I devised a strategy to deal with my son. A month later, I called my son. Kim agreed to divorce you. I've moved her belongings out, so come to your old house when convenient.
Really? You're amazing, Mom. Thanks. I'll be there soon.
He seemed to be contacting someone and responded that he'd come in 2 weeks. With Kim still in the hospital, I facilitated their divorce. When the day he was supposed to come arrived, I waited, and a moving truck stopped in front of the house. From the second-floor window, I saw him and his mistress smiling as they walked up. I told my granddaughter not to come downstairs no matter what and went down. As I waited inside, I heard the sound of keys in the front door.
Ha! The key's not working. What's going on?
Irritated, he spoke from the other side of the door. I sighed and opened the door forcefully, glaring at him.
Mom? What are you doing here?
I told you I'd be waiting at your old house. He seemed shocked, eyes wide, not expecting to see me inside. What did you bring in the truck?
My new wife's things.
What are you talking about? This isn't your house anymore. I changed the locks too.
What? You can't do that. This is my house. You're the one who told me to come here.
Embarrassed, his mistress nudged him. What's going on? Looking ready to explode, he stepped towards me, and I stood my ground. Remember, this house was under Dad's name?
Yeah, so it'll be mine eventually.
He insisted it was his right to inherit. You're mistaken. I inherited this house after Dad passed. He must have lived carelessly, not even knowing this. If he had lived happily with them, I might have left the house to him eventually. But he abandoned his wife, who went through a tough surgery, and neglected our granddaughter. I revealed another harsh truth. By the way, I changed the ownership to Kim's name. He couldn't believe it and glared at me, but I wasn't fazed. I had planned everything so she and our granddaughter wouldn't struggle after I was gone. The divorce is finalized, and if you try to enter the house, it's a crime. I picked up my phone to call the police, and he hesitated. If you don't want to be reported, leave with the moving truck immediately.
You've got to be kidding. I already gave up the apartment, and everything's here.
Oh, that reminds me. I put your stuff in a storage unit. Here's the key and the bill. He yelled angrily, but I pretended not to hear. Goodbye. As I tried to close the door, he pushed back.
I know you're really mad. Let us stay at the old house for a bit.
I shook my head and gave him a cold stare.
Don't you want a successor? Her son would secure the future.
He tried to convince me desperately. Listening closely, I learned she was a single mom with a 6-year-old boy. 2 months ago, When Kim's illness was discovered, Matt started an affair with her. When I heard about the sports day, I thought he'd been cheating for a long time, but it had only been 2 months. Leaving his wife and child for a woman he barely knew was pathetic. I asked if she knew he had a family, and she nodded. If they're my blood, boy or girl, they're precious. Melissa is my only grandchild. Realizing I wouldn't budge, he glared at me menacingly, unlike my son. I stared back. From today, we're no longer mother and son. I can't accept someone who abandons his sick wife and child. He sneered.
Fine. It's a relief not to deal with a nagging old lady.
His rotten attitude left me speechless. Your job performance is terrible. Your boss only kept you because of your father. When I told him about this, he reconsidered your position. He often had poor attendance and behavior, likely leading to his dismissal.
No way. I'll lose my job and salary. How will I live?
He finally realized the gravity of his situation.
Mom, I'm sorry. I'll change my ways. Don't abandon me. What if your son suffers?
His words fueled my anger. How dare you? Who left Melissa alone without food? Enough nonsense. Seeing my fury, he fell silent. No inheritance for you. And you'll pay $30,000 for the affair and $70,000 for Melissa's support in one lump sum.
I'll have nothing left. How will I survive?
He turned pale and trembled. I turned to the silent woman beside him. I'm charging you $100,000 for knowing he was married. She protested. This wasn't the deal. He promised me a luxurious life. She lashed out at him, but he was stunned and broken. Don't just sit there. The movers are waiting.
Ah!
It's too early to scream. Leaving Melissa alone is a crime. Be prepared. I handed him the storage info and slammed the door. I watched from the window as the truck drove away, saying a final farewell in my heart. I then patted Melissa's head and called Kim. I dealt with him. Now you just need to get better. Her doctor had just given her the all-clear to go home. Melissa could now fully enjoy being with her mom. Matt ended up in a gray, gloomy place for abandoning Melissa. After being released, he paid a large sum and was left penniless. The mistress, after being charged, left him. Jobless and alone, he eventually disappeared. Rumors said he was seen scavenging in a park. I worried, but he brought it on himself. Kim was soon discharged and lived with Melissa. Melissa happily went to school every day, and I enjoyed time with my grandchildren.
Grandma, your omelets are so delicious. I want them every day.
Her smile is my greatest joy. How did you like this story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.